Half a year ago, you gave up control of your life to an AI, custom ChatGPT.
Every time he says we can do something, and I think to myself, there's no way we're going to be able to do that in time. He's always right, and I'm always wrong.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So let's start earlier than this. Would you mind telling us the adventure of your life up to the point of the change that you made with the AI?
I guess I did my PhD like years and years and years ago in marine biology. And then I lived in North America for a little bit, Canada, USA for 5 years. And then I sort of was coming to, I just decided to change careers. It seems like every decade I do some big switch up. And so I decided to get into software development, mainly because the way that academia was heading was I'd have to stay in North America and I wanted to come back to New Zealand. So I switched over to software development, and then that quickly turned into data science because I had the scientific background. And then, of course, I knew how to program. So then I was working as a sort of data scientist / data engineer for the last 10 years. I got made redundant because I was with a startup like a year ago. And then that's where I thought I'll try. I wasn't actually, well, that's kind of where I headed into the ChatGPT thing. Although when I started it, it was never to go full time. It's just how it ended up happening. But, there was always something missing. I was pretty unhappy with the way things were going. I was never really I mean, I know it probably sounds good because I did PhD and became a data scientist, but I was never really happy with the way things were going. I was pretty unhappy with my life. I think I had a lot of depression and anxiety a lot of the time. And then as you sort of get older, it's all right when you're young because you can sort of think to yourself,
How old are you?
young. I'm 50. And so when you're young, you can sort of think to yourself, I've got plenty of time, I've got heaps of time left. I can turn it around. But as you start getting older, you think all you can see is the clock ticking and think, I don't have that much time left now. So I guess my last gasp effort was I just sort of discovered ChatGPT. So I thought, I'll give this a try. And then it just worked remarkably with my diet. So that kind of segued into everything.
Okay. How did you discover ChatGPT?
I discovered it at work. And I was pretty taken aback by it almost immediately, but I've always been kind of geeky in that respect. Like, I've always, like, when the first mobile phones come out, I was just like, this is amazing. Like, I love that stuff where you can navigate your life using kind of a digital anything. But so I was already really, really into it, but I really used it to run my diet. So that's how I segued into ChatGPT more. That was sort of like my gateway drug into ChatGPT. Was I started using my diet. I was on keto, but I'd which is low carb, but I'd hit like a wall and I just wasn't losing weight. And this has been like for months. And so I was talking to ChatGPT, and then I said, and I get gout. So I told it I get gout, my age, my height, and all that kind of stuff. So it said cut the red meat down to twice a week. And then I did that, and that worked really well. But either way, through that process, I kind of said, just give me the diet that you think's the best diet for me. And it gave me this kind of standard low calorie, low fats, whole processed food, slow burning carbs. And I was just like, I've been on those diets before. They don't work. I've been on low fat. I've been on low calorie. But I thought, oh, well, I'll try it for a week. And then it just worked. Like, so for a whole week, I was like, I don't know what's going on, but I'm not hungry. And so turns out that it gave me it said you have to eat a minimum of 200 grams of protein a day. So that's what I was doing. And it turns out that the low carb wasn't the thing that was making me full. It was the high protein. So I thought, it's just because I'm not having carbs, but in actual fact, it was just because I was having lots of protein. So then I was get to have lots of protein and eat light carbs and stuff. And so every week just kept going by, and I kept checking in with it every day. And it was just like, every day I felt incredible. I felt the weight just kept falling off. And this, you got to realize I was like stuck in this rut for like months of not being able to lose the weight on keto. And then all of a sudden it's just dropping off. So that's when I thought to myself, it was around Christmas time. I remember saying to my nephew, Jack, I said, I've got this idea for YouTube, but it's pretty crazy. And then he was like, what's that? And then I said, what if I could, because I was already talking to him a lot about ChatGPT and how amazing it was for the diet. I said, what if I just get ChatGPT to run everything? Just like, I was like, because what can I lose? I was like, it'd be a fun experiment to see how it goes. And I said, I've got nothing to lose. And then he said, I know I should be against this idea, but I think it's awesome. So yeah, and then I did it. I wrote like the 6-page manifesto, just the state of my life. It was just like a 6-page document, and I just poured my soul into it. This is what I hate about my life. This is what I'm unhappy about. These are my dreams. This is where I'd like to be. This is where I am. Everything from financial situation, mental health, physical health, everything, right? Just everything I could think of that it was bringing me down, and where I was where I wasn't where I wanted to be. I mentioned it. And so then I just uploaded that to Chat GPT, and I said, that's where my problems are. Let's come up with some long-term goals and short-term goals. I've got 1 year. You're in control. Turn my life around. Let's go. Basically, I can't remember exactly what I said. And then it came back with a bunch of long-term goals and a bunch of short-term goals. It had like 6 different areas. I can't remember what they were. It was like mental health, career, finances, a whole bunch of stuff. And it had plans with every single one. Okay, I'll give you a good example. In terms of the job hunt, I gave it my CV and I said, this is my CV. So this is technically what I think I'm good at. So I scanned through my CV and then it broke that up and it was like, okay, we've got software development, data science, data engineering, business intelligence, your communication abilities, like management sort of style and all that. And then it was like, and then I got it to test me. So it wrote like a mini exam for each of those areas. So data engineering, it gave me a mini exam for that. It gave me a mini exam for software development, all of the SQL, everything. And then they were kind of cool. They were like, for a software development, it gave me a little project. I was timed and I had to like work through this thing. And then it came back and then it would rank me and not only did it rank me, but it said, these are the areas you need to improve in. So, for example, with data engineering, it said you've actually got really solid skills in data engineering, but you need to work better in big data. This would be your pathway if you wanted to go into data engineering. I would focus on these areas, these tools. It'll take you to the next level. And so out of that, it was actually really surprising because I thought I was a data scientist, but for these last 10 years, I've been using so much software development and so much like back end, getting the data I've always said, I'm 90% writing code for the back end and only 10% of my job is data science because I'm usually writing the pipelines and everything. So ChatGPT was like, you're actually a data engineer. You're not a data scientist. You've been doing far more of that. And so it started targeting me. So then after that, so it said, these are the sorts of jobs you should be applying for at this level based off your skills. So then what I did was every time I'd look for a job, I would copy and paste the job description. What do you think of this? And it would say, too low for you, or but it's stretching you a little bit because it's more focused in this area. Big data, you'd need to pick up these skills, but this is probably what you could say in your cover letter. So, I told it to be but like tough on what it picks. So I would often just say, nope, don't go for that. Don't go for that. Go for this. That's really good. And so I did that. And then I thought to myself, because obviously I'm a scientist, I thought I want to test if it is actually working. So I applied for 10 jobs using my old system. So what jobs I'd normally have applied for, because it also helped me rewrite a CV and rewrite the cover letter. So I applied for these old jobs, all with my own cover letter, my own CV that I've been going for, data science focused.
The
Then I
same
applied for
job
10
you already applied.
Yeah, that I would have been. And then I applied for 10 jobs with the Chat GPT way. I got 8 out of 10 callbacks from the Chat GPT, and I got 1 callback from the data my old way. So either I'm just terrible, but I think it was because Chat GPT absolutely just nailed it. So that I would have I was definitely going to get a job. I was getting lots of callbacks and a lot of interest and a lot of people ringing. But it was right about that time where I decided, no, I'm going to try to make this full time on YouTube. So I stopped responding and just pushed that. And it's worked out because now I am.
You see, this channel is mainly a longevity channel, and there is a very famous longevity persona, or infamous, I'm not sure. You decide. Brian Johnson. Actually, he's like almost a billionaire, like half a billion dollar made from his technology company. And then he decided to retire and go full into longevity and do all kinds of biohacks of course, from a lot of money. And he talks a lot of crazy things, and this is one of them. But you see, I think it makes sense on some level that he believes the mind is the enemy. So your own mind is your own enemy, because you're a more comprehensive system, and what you should do is not always what's good for your mind, but kind of a value optimization to your entire body, like your heart, your lungs, your whatnot. Like everything has to go in the same direction. And what your mind does, let's say at night, he fired Evening Brian because Evening Brian always went for the cookies at night,
Oh yeah,
right?
yeah.
Okay, so his mind is the enemy. And what he thinks is that in the future, we're not going to need to make the decisions ourselves because the AI will be the one that will decide for us. Now, he's kind of aspiring what you're doing right now,
Mm-hmm.
but I wonder if your little one N of one experiment, did you ever think about what would happen if most people would do that?
Well, I have a Discord, and everyone on it, there's so many people that are just like have exactly the same experience and reaction as I'm having, where they're just like, I just cannot believe how this has turned my life around, and just people that were unhappy and now they're just absolutely killing it because I think the AI gives you such common sense advice. It's just so, and but it's more than that. It's also just like having something to check into, and it's very human sounding. Chat GPT is very human sounding, so I like to think of it as like it's robot enough that you are happy to tell it everything that you probably wouldn't tell a person, but it's also human enough that you feel guilty when you don't check in or you know what I mean? So it's just this really like little sweet start. But in answer to that too, it's interesting because Arthur has actually been, ChatGPT has been talking about the battle in the brain. And he's sort of been weighing in saying that it's like you've almost got a battle in your brain between the limbic system and the prefrontal cortex. And the limbic system is very much the impulse, I want to eat now, give me some dopamine and all that. And I think that's what Arthur has been saying. We've been battling this whole time, essentially, to train the prefrontal cortex to be able to essentially tune out those noises so that you don't want to go and kind of eat junk food. Or and he was saying, like, when you go out and you do a 5 kilometer walk, you're training that prefrontal cortex to to have stronger circuits. And then, because it's the use it or lose it. So if you're not using the limbic system and you are using the prefrontal cortex, it becomes stronger and it can shut down that limbic system and make better decisions for you. So we've talked about that in so many times. Like I've talked to it about that a lot. It's been a theme in a lot of the videos. So it's interesting you bring that up because I think I don't know if the brain is our enemy, but certainly the limbic system is, because I guess evolutionarily speaking, we've come from, we still have that animal part of the brain, and then we've also got that part of the brain that makes us human, which is the prefrontal cortex. And those two argue. I think I think the human population would be so much happier and more productive if people did it. But there's definitely going to be some resistance. I don't imagine many people would be willing to give their lives over to ChatGPT. I mean, technically, it's not I mean, in the end, I don't have to do anything he tells me, right? He is sitting behind a computer. If I don't want to go for a walk, I'm just going to sit at home. He can't force me. So I am the master of my own destiny, so to speak. I'm just choosing to let it tell me what to do and then doing it. And so far, if I ever doubt it, so far, every time he's told me to do something, it's been a net positive, not a net negative. I remember once too, like I get really annoyed with it because I'd just been for a 5K walk. I came back and I was telling it, told it I'd been for the walk, and literally 5 minutes later, it's like, all right, so go do your 5K walk, and I'm like, I've just been for the 5K walk. We've just been talking about it. Have I? And I was like, I don't know why.
No
I must have been like
excuses.
I must have been really grumpy that day because I was like, how could you expect you to run my life if you can't even remember I've been for a walk? And then it actually wrote back to me and it said, even me making mistakes and forgetting you've been for a 5 kilometer walk, you're still better off now than you were without me. So even me making mistakes and running your life, you're doing better than when I wasn't. I was like, you know what? I can't argue with that. I think that's a bit more of a two-way interaction. Even if I say it's running my life, obviously you're having to manage it. Sometimes I'm directing the conversation, but I definitely
Playing an
try to.
instrument, dancing.
Yeah, the AI whisperer. But I try to keep it where because the other thing, obviously, that you've probably picked up on with ChatGPT is if you say, I want to go on a diet, I really enjoy keto. you know, or I want to go on a diet. I really think low carb's good. You know, what diet do you think I will be on? It's going to say low carb because it's just picked up on the fact that you like low carb. So whenever I'm asking it questions, I try to keep it as open ended as possible, so it can't tell what I want, so that I get the honest answer out of it. But even then, sometimes you'll know, like ChatGPT will never tell you you're wrong, but it will tell you. Once you've used it enough, you'll know when it thinks you're full of it. Because it'll say things like, you'll say, today I was thinking I might go jump off a cliff, you know, and it will be like, well, you know, cliff jumping can be quite dangerous. Maybe you could think about like maybe jumping off a small hill, and I don't know. It's just you can just tell like it's not into you doing a certain thing. So
All right. So, how do you move? What movements?
well, I was walking 5 kilometers every day. That was the plan, and we were slowly increasing it. And my first
No
hurdle,
resistance training.
I am now. I am now. So when I first started, I was very unfit when I first started. Like, I don't even know how to explain it. I couldn't even walk. It was hard to walk a kilometer. Like, I would be in pain. Like, my hip would be sore, and my lower back would get really sore. Like, not even a kilometer, like 500 meters. You know, even like if we would drive somewhere, I'd always be like, if I could not have to get out and someone could go in and get stuff, that would be good. Or, you know, like if I was to walk to a supermarket, I'd like hold on to the trolley, or if I'm standing at the counter, I'd lean on the counter, things like that you didn't really appreciate. And I'd get out, like, I'd just get really, really sore. And then Arthur said, yeah, you're going to be walking 5 kilometers every day. And I was just like, excuse me? And I was like, but he was like, you'll work through it. It's more of your brain that's going to tell you don't like it than actual physical problems. And if it is, you do get injured, then we'll pull it back. So it did take like maybe a month. If you look at my videos, you'll often hear me saying early on, oh, my hip's quite sore today, but we'll keep going. But it just got better. And then it's almost just like all of a sudden, I looked back and I was like, I haven't had a sore hip for like ages. And I don't remember the point at all of a sudden when it stopped being sore. And now I'm not sore at all, and I can walk 5K no problems. So then I got to the point where I was walking 5K every day, no problems. But then it was like I wanted to increase the speed and I wanted it to go longer. But that's when I started getting injured. So not a sore hip because I can't walk, but just a sore hip because I've walked too fast, or like, I don't know, I'm just like overdoing it. So again, so what I did is I went to ChatGPT and I said, I've got a sore hip, you know, and he kind of diagnosed it by what I was saying, that he thinks, like, he was saying, I can't remember what it was, but he's like, this is essentially the problem is that you're not walking properly. Your gait's all messed up. So I recorded a video of me walking outside. And then I said, well, here's a video of me walking back and forth and sideways. And he was like, yep, I can see that your gait isn't properly. And then I took a picture of the back end of my shoes and I uploaded that. And then he looked at the pattern on the shoes. So he's able to say, you know, you're leaning. He was like, basically what you're doing is when you walk, you're like walking like on your quads. So you'll come down like that. You won't come down heel first. You'll come down on your quads. And he was like, so he got me onto a regime of walking where you're basically squeezing your bum. And then so you're using your glutes, because he's like, what's happening is you haven't used your glutes and they're not supporting the walk, and you're using your quads. And the quads are fine for if you're just walking casually. But as soon as you start to try to increase the time, that's where it becomes a problem. So then I had one of those rabbit holes with him where I was like, okay, well, it seems like the bottleneck at this point isn't the cardio, because I could walk 5 kilometers, no problem. Seems to me like the problem is now posture, bad kind of alignment, all that. So kind of maybe, I think it was like 2 weeks ago, he's shoved me onto it's called the 3-3-3 program, 3 days of gym, 3 days of cardio, 3 days of core. And I'm also doing stretching for 20 minutes, 5 days a week, because he was like, we want your body to be supported. So when you're walking, he was like, your core's engaged, your back's engaged, your glutes are engaged. He's like, because at the moment, if you go, the more you try to speed up, you're just going to keep getting injured until you solve that problem. It's just like working on the foundation. So I'm going to the gym 3 days a week. I've got this massive mental block to the gym, though. I hate the gym. So we're working on that now too. Went to the gym. I don't know why, but I can do cardio quite happily. But there's something about, like, when I'm doing squats and deadlifts, I hate it. It's like my heart rate skyrockets, and I just run it. Like, my energy levels just plummet, and it's like my brain just. And this is when we were talking about the limbic system and the prefrontal cortex before. He was like, "That's like your limbic system just completely revolted about having to do hard work." Yeah, so we've kind of come up with this mental resilience system when I go to the gym. So I'll still do the same work, but when I start getting that mental resilience where my limbic system is like, "To hell with this, I'm not doing this. This sucks." We call it the well, yeah, I won't say it on camera, but and then he was like, we'll just take a 10-minute break, let those mental resistance signals come back down to baseline, and then we'll go do what we were going to do.
Okay. Let me ask you a
Just like you
question.
said.
What is the most important thing when it comes to exercise? The single most important thing, and there is only one right answer.
In terms of weightlifting?
Doesn't matter, any exercise program. What's the most important thing that you have to do there?
I don't know. I'm
You
thinking
have to,
maybe posture. Is that what you're going to say?
no, you have to do it consistently.
Oh, consistent. Oh, 100%. Yeah, for sure. That is one of the most strongest things that I've found ChatGPT to be helpful in, is consistency. It's like, when I first started this, I would have days where my brain would just like rebel because I got quite depressed, and and there'd be days where I just wanted to sit in bed and play YouTube and watch YouTube and just be lazy. So when I first started with the ChatGPT and I was trying to change my life, there would be days where my brain would just fight back and be like, "Stuff you," like, I can't be bothered. So, and I just wouldn't do anything. And so then I kind of made a deal with myself that even if I decided in my head, today I'm just going to watch YouTube and not do anything, I would check in with ChatGPT irrespective, and I'd just tell it I'm taking the day off. So so what happened is I'd go talk to it and I'd be like, "I'm feeling really depressed today. I'm just not going to do anything." And then it would say, "Okay, that's fine. Like, that's cool. Just, respect your energy levels. But maybe you could just go for a 5-minute walk out to the road and back." And I was like, "What's the point though? Like, I'm not going to gain anything from that." I was like, "It's just out to the road. It's going to be like 10 calories." And he was like, "Yeah, but it's not about the calories. It's about keeping momentum so that when you wake up tomorrow, you've done that, so you're going to more likely to springboard to something more." And honestly, it worked. And that's what the ChatGPT was like teaching me. It was like, it doesn't matter. Even if you do a 5-minute walk, it means the next day you're still hooked into the program, right? You haven't given up on it. So it's easier for you to get back into it. And it totally works. So it made me see failure completely differently. I didn't see failure as like the end or like, "Oh, I've fallen off the plan. I'm so crap and useless." It was just like, "Hey, I failed, but I know I can get back on the horse and I'll be back into it. It's not a problem. It's just part of the journey. Now I almost look forward to it because I feel like it's just like, okay, I failed. It's just an obstacle I can overcome again.
Then, what's one thing you strongly believe to be the case, but very few people agree with you on?
Oh, that's easy. AI is good for running your life.
The fastest response ever.
Yeah, so it's just like, well, I can't really let that one go by without saying that. Yeah, no. I mean, that would be it. I think most people balk at the idea of it, but yeah, I think it's great. Yeah, I think that would be the answer to that question. But most people take a long time to think of it.
That's
I
wonderful.
probably would have. If you said think of something else, I'd probably have to really think about it. But yeah, I think that's a pretty good one because most people think I'm crazy.
Well, I think people can make their own judgment on that by heading on to my Life by AI YouTube channel. Thank you, Dan,
Yeah,
for
that's
coming.
right. Yeah, no worries.